Cool. Yeah, so give it a couple of minutes obviously for more people to join. So tonight, unfortunately, Mason's not able to join us. He's a little bit busy. So tonight we're going to do a bit of a, if you guys have got any questions, and a bit of a 3D printing workshop for any questions that you've got, printing problems you've got. By all means, fire away at us. We've got a couple of admin here who'll be able to try and give you a hand. But just give it a couple of minutes for everyone else to join. But if you've got any questions, by all means, just put them in YouTube and we can try and help you out. So give me a second to read all that. Yeah, so we are looking into actually the route of getting it recycled. It is being split into two different categories, obviously PLA and PETG, so it can actually be recycled. That is something we're already looking at doing, and potentially sending it off to companies that can recycle it back into filament. Obviously, that process obviously has a cost behind it, so obviously we'll try and work all those angles out. Yeah, exactly, Tony. But if you look at, for example, you can get filament through Amazon, for example, from Chinese companies, which you can buy for £10 a kilo, or usually places like Filamentum that do recycling, they're generally a lot more expensive, which unfortunately partially is due to recycling costs. But we are looking at it, getting a deal with them to be able to sort something out, if that's possible, and other companies obviously as well. But it's not a quick and easy thing to get resolved. That's why we're just stockpiling any parts that have been rejected until we can get those kind of things sorted. Yeah, so from makers, we would only be looking at accepting parts 3D printed in PLA and PETG at the moment. There are various other angles and issues with molded parts in different materials that would be cast and made in. To be honest, the specific material related problems are not really my area of expertise, to be honest. So Rob, if you look in this hashtag start here on Slack, that will give you all the relevant documents, everything from buy box locker sizes to the QC criteria. Everything's all in there. All the documents should be found in there. So if you guys got any 3D printer related questions as well, by all means, throw them in there. It doesn't have to just be questions about the whole process. We also obviously try to do this bit of a. You can actually throw questions at us so we can try and help fix any printer problems you've got, or anything we can try and help with as well. Or just to cover a couple of the things we've also seen in Slack as well. So people with their prints that have been a part of getting rejected through the quality requirements through the. Try again. So the parts that have been getting rejected at IGUS at quality control, we are in the process of improving that system to make sure, obviously, one, the correct message gets sent out. Because was it a period of time, I think about a day, where we sent out an email saying your points are now available, and actually it should have been telling you that your points weren't available because of the quality of the parts and whatever else. We are looking at a better method for you to be able to get that information. Also be able to see the status of your order better without having to obviously always contact admin. So you'll be able to kind of see all that stuff yourself. But obviously this stuff does take time to make. But we are working on it.
With regards to the quality of the prints, I would like to sort of say if we could try and go for quality over quantity at the moment. I know we had a bit of a big rush last week, but moving forwards, if we can try and sort of dial them in better, we have those printed channels now. If anyone's unaware of them, you can add them via the channel at the top of the Slack. Add channel, and you can add your printer to yourself to that channel, depending on what printer you've got, and you can all discuss on the best type of slicers and the settings for them, basically, for that printer.
For us now, you give a consistent ambient temperature, I think it's true. So, Peter, top tip with chambers as well, if you just be careful, make sure you move the electronics outside the chamber, because you potentially could end up with your electronics overheating. And if you're using a standard ANET board, they actually have a known issue with the connectors where you're connecting the mains power from the power from the power supply to it, and also they use the same connectors for the heat bed, and that they do also tend to burn out. So it's always best to move your electronics outside so they stay in a cooler environment than the printed chamber. Dave, preferred method of shipping would be buy box. We are looking, well, I'm in the process of potentially winding down some of the gap locations which you use less. Obviously, I am aware of how this can affect people. I will be making sure that the ones we're looking at pulling from people, or pulling from the site, will have buy box locations nearby that you'll be able to use, so that we're not hindering people by making this change. The change is being done so we can use gap at the other end of the process. So when we're sending stuff back out of IGUS. Mal, how solid in the build? So I'm assuming you mean do the parts need to be 100%? So you can either do 100% infill, or if you set your minimum wall thickness or perimeters, whatever the setting is in your slicer, to a high number, so 20 or 30 or so, that will make it also 100% infill as well. But it will make it be constant perimeters, which is quicker to print than back and forth infill. Pascal, if you've got any questions and things you want help with your N3, by all means pop them in here. I'm sure between the admins we've got in here, we'll be able to hopefully give you some pointers in the right direction. Yeah, so some people might find that if they're printing it at 100% infill, dependent on the other settings hiding in the background, that their part might over extrude slightly. So if you do find that, by all means knock the infill percentage down a couple of percent. You'll still get 100% physical infill on the product, but you don't get the over extrusion in there. It's I think to fix that.
The 100% infill setting on some slices override other settings in the background, which is why at the start we did say 99% infill, but we were getting a lot of questions as to why it was 99 instead of 100, and then eventually it just changed to 100. But 99% infill is probably your best bet, and then knock up your line, what were you saying, Adam, the 20 lines.
Yeah, so if you use 20 or 30 perimeters, walls, shells, whatever your slicer calls them, probably one of those three. So Sonic, you said about using a 3D pen. I would say no, because you won't be able to. So in using it instead mold like a cheap injection mold. So using a 3D pen would not give you anywhere near the kind of quality that would be acceptable, because it's just not physically possible to use a 3D pen and get that kind of quality out of it that you can obviously get from a machine with controlled axes. What's going to be? Yeah, so as I said, at the moment we're only looking at it taken in through makers' donations, 3D printed parts. Fortunately, we don't have any other plans at the moment. If there becomes a clear avenue that potentially we've got the people out there that can do it and will do it, then we can potentially look into those different areas. But yeah, it's not realistic at the minute for us to be able to put in a whole separate process for a couple of people that are able to do that. And you go on saying using the pen to squirt into the mold, not on its own. If you're just squirting a string of PLA out of a pen into a mold, it's not going to be 100% infill, because as it cools, it's going to have air in there, which will create weaknesses in the part. You'll have basically zero structural integrity in the part as well, because of the way it would be cast. When you obviously flex the part to put it on the head, it would just snap clean, it would just be brittle. So you need to make sure that you've got good layers in there for it to be a functional part. 3D pens are great for making something you're going to sit on the side, or for repairing things, for patching, even on 3D printed models. It's quite good for that. If you've got like a support issue where like supports fell away, and then you've got like if you print a bust, for example, you've got a hole under the head, like under the chin. It's really good for just filling those in. But unfortunately, there's too many problems with that method for us to be able to accept them.
Yeah, I've actually got a 3D pen, and I use it to bond parts together sometimes, as well as a soldering iron. And to be honest, sometimes the material that's come out the 3D pen doesn't bond to the plastic that's already set. So I find it fairly poor, but I did get it off Wish, so it's probably my own fault.
So I'm going to go with Kick. I'm not going to attempt to the rest of that name, unfortunately. So some people are getting holes in the corner of their parts. So as you look at any picture, you see obviously the perimeters go around, and then you end up with that little area that's getting filled in on each layer. If there is a minor gap in those parts, that's not a problem. That can be accepted. If you flex the part as if you're putting it on your head, and that then tears open, you end up with a whole wall coming loose from the main of the part, or that gap ends up like ripping into the part in any which way, then that's where it wouldn't be accepted. The same as if when you first pull it open, especially with PETG, you might hear some minor creaking, which is perfectly normal. That's just a trait of the material being so taut, and you're then just kind of loosening it a little bit. That's not a major problem. It's if the part actually separates and shows signs of weakness when you're doing that normal flex that you do to put it on your head. So yes, we say these parts are one use at the moment, but you still could be putting it on and off your head a couple of times. Sorry, Therese, did you want to jump in and say something as well?
Of course. So as most of you know, and well, I've been waiting at the edge of my seat for a phone call all of yesterday, all of today, and there's still no phone call. Tell me the situation. I just think it's really important everyone is clear as to what's going on out there. They have been inundated, absolutely inundated with PPE to test. And as it is, we've been very lucky that they have pushed ours, quite far up the queue. And we were supposed to be tested yesterday. It's just unfortunate, somebody's gone off ill. But he told me it should have been done yesterday afternoon. If not, it would have been done today. I haven't had a phone call yet. So I'm going to spend another day tomorrow at the edge of my seat, ready to jump on the phone as soon as it rings. And obviously, we're all desperately keen to know what the results are going to be like. I am hopeful that we've covered everything in the BSEN regulations. But obviously, there's nothing better than having an absolute test done and you pass it. That's what we actually need. Okay, just to give you a bit of update anyway about that.
I'll just answer Pascal there about the 3D printing and just wanting to give off. I've only had the printers. I've got 2 now, and at the beginning I had them about 8 months now, and you've sort of got to see it as a hobby in a way where you're going to learn as you go. There's things you're going to come across. When I first started, I was on the forums asking all sorts of questions and people saying, oh God, how are you asking this? It's so easy. And you just don't know to begin with until you do it yourself. But you soon get into it, and every failure is a learning opportunity. And then after about 4 months, I then went and doubled my problems. But it is more of a hobby. Yeah, we're trying to ramp up things and produce things at short notice. But stick with it. It will get you eventually. That's why we've got 1,500 people in the Slack. Instead of 1,500 printers and some broken windows that people have chucked them out of.
Yeah,
I've been tempted. I have been tempted.
Again, on that as well. My first printer, I said yesterday, was at ANET A8. I bought it knowing that it was going to be not the best printer. It was going to require a lot of time and effort, a lot of upgrades. I ended up printing for it, and I managed to probably get about 3 parts out of that printer that weren't just upgraded parts for that printer. I learned a lot about it, and then my wife kindly put her hand deep in her pocket and bought me a Prusa. I've learned a lot about the material from that printer. I learned a lot about how the actual machine works, given I think I had it apart more times than I had it together. It obviously it depends on the individual, but I found if you be a bit more, if you're methodical about what you check to try and fix your problems, you'll find you'll get there far better. The same old thing with it. If you change more than one thing at once, you don't know which thing fixed it or made it worse, made it better, or whatever. But a prime one that I found from the get-go was I tried to buy the cheapest possible PLA. Cheapest possible PLA is great. You can print it and you can get results out of it, not a problem. But at the start, it's just another complexity that's not going to tell you an answer because the problem's already gone through the nozzle. Especially if you've got inconsistent filament, like filament diameter and whatever else as well. Sometimes just spending that 20 quid buying a brand that you know. So one of the common brands I use is 3D Prima. It's good, it's cheap, it's not.
Other brands are available.
Yeah, but there's I've also got some Colour Fab and Prusa Mint, obviously rather expensive materials as well. But you don't have to go whole hog to start with. There's plenty of cheap, good alternatives to get yourself started, get yourself learned into where your problems are without just burning material through the nozzle, which is so easy to do. And I definitely put my first kilo straight in the bin after obviously going through the nozzle. So there's another question I saw a second ago.
I would just add to that us admins have been test printing, and I've got 2 bin bags full of PLA where we failed as much as anyone. But the great thing is you've now got a community there of 1,000+ people who will help. We've got a good community here. Just it is getting a little bit lost in the Slack, which is why those printing channels are good. Get yourself added to one of the channels that's suitable for your printer, and anyone who's who's not part of those channels, I'd say get in there and help everyone out.
Yeah, exactly. Sort of question from Rob Norris: would it help to add a channel specifically for logistics and deliveries? The majority of questions on Slack seem to be messy mix of delivery issues and printer issues. So, for those of you that aren't aware, I've been given the non-envious task of being in charge of the logistics and also IT. In charge of IT is I point Alfie in the right direction and I hope he goes there. Logistics obviously take up the majority of my time. Most of the logistics problems that you guys are seeing isn't, from my point of view anyway, I don't see them as logistics problems, more as the information's not there, so you're having to contact us to find out where your parts are and whatever else. That's why we're working on a solution where you'll be able to see where your parts are and what the status of them are. So instead of you have to come to us and constantly try and get hold of an admin, which I understand, especially for myself, can be quite busy. I'm quite busy most of the time. So we are trying to improve that information access for you guys, so that you don't have as many questions in there that you can't easily find yourself answers for. Because the best kind of customer service is self-service, as I personally am well aware of. Yeah, so there you go. Prime example right there. Tony, if you saying you've got 3D printer recently, I bet it's one hell of a learning curve to get from nothing up to where you are. I did that 3 years ago when I first got my printer. I now have 4 in my house, 2 of them of which are waiting for me to actually have some time to go and fix them. But yeah, it's a very good hobby. Also got a little one that they can draw things. I've seen people, a guy on YouTube, his kid drew a monster. He then put it up in CAD and printed his kid's drawing for him. Yeah, it's those kind of things is definitely what make me want to just print more and more stuff. And obviously at the minute, just to be able to help out as well. Yeah, Christian, so you'll find most printer brands also have Facebook pages and that as well. So if you find that you're not enough people in the community that we've got haven't obviously got the specific printer you want, there's plenty of other resources out there to get information. I know specifically with the ANET A8, because that was probably the most popular cheap printer before printers became cheap, basically. There's loads of the big 3D printing YouTubers out there that have done tutorials on how best upgrades and loads of stuff on there. And then basically most printers have got videos on them on YouTube as well. So I'm jumping around in questions here. Buried in them. So try to print V7 with 0.6 mm nozzle, cure or idea maker seem to get lots of gaps after a long travel, assume oozing out in travels. Yeah, so if you're depends on what kind of, so it's the Owen's question, it's a little way up, so I'm a little bit behind. So depends if you've got a Bowden or a direct drive, that can have a big effect. So if you've got a Bowden, then you have to have longer retracts, because you've got a little bit of give in that in the filament in the PTFE tube. If you've got a direct drive, just add a few more mil of retraction tends to help with oozing. If you have any form of oozing outside of just coming out the end of the nozzle, you need to look at tightening up your nozzle and potentially your heat block onto the heat break. Yeah, so Sonic again asked you about the official tip section. That's why we created the individual pages. That there is no one-stop solution to any individual printer or anything. They're all printers are different beasts. They're like cars. They can all have the same problem, but they can have a different cause. It's always best to talk to someone about your problem. They can give you kind of help you out, or you could find in there that someone's got kind of a good checklist to go through. And if anyone has got a good 3D printer troubleshooting guide, by all means stick it in here. in the appropriate channels, and obviously we can get that shared out among people to help more people. Yeah, so Christian, you said I definitely recommend Zero. Believe it or not, that was actually the first PLA I tried and one of the first problems I had. I moved away from it and it worked. So it just shows actually what works for some people doesn't necessarily work for others. So Pascal asked about brands of filament. I don't know what Phil tends to use, but I tend to use 3D Prima just because I know I can get it on Amazon. I can get it 24 hours. To be honest,
that's expensive stuff. Yeah, Adam uses the expensive stuff, and I'm a cheap person. To be honest, I just use whatever's the cheapest on Amazon, which tends to be one called BQ. And I found it to be okay as long as you stay away from the yellow. There's something to do with the additive in the yellow causes it to be awful. But other than that, I found it okay. But you do. I've never actually really printed with any good quality filaments. But Adam tells me you get what you pay for. And if you're on about maybe, is that filament or a budget brand printer? I don't know. I'm going to say it's filament. If it's printer, please repost and we'll discuss that.
Yeah. Yeah, Christian, glad you're happy with the filament you've got. I will be, after this, going and spending a couple of hours in my garage sorting out the outgoing post. So all filament that we're shipping out, it all gets delivered to me. I then have to sort it and also obviously deal with all your orders. So it's obviously just me and the wife going through all of those orders. Sometimes with a screaming child, which makes life great fun. Get left to do it on my own. Yes, David said about looking in your print preview window. So personally, I've since changing away from my ANET, so I used to use Cura way back when, I think I was on like 3.6 or something, and then I moved across to Sleek 3R or Slicer, whichever you prefer, and Prusa Edition, and now you just use Prusa Slicer. You will still find that, yes, looking at the print preview is always a really good way to see if you're going to have any problems. It's one of the best ways to actually look at your print before you print it, to find if you've got overhangs that aren't going to be supported and whatever else. But sometimes you may still print out and go, I checked that before. That should have looked fine. It looked like it filled those holes in. But then for some reason the printer doesn't print it. That is a very normal situation. I think that's also a lot of time how the holes in the prints are coming.
With regard to Tom there saying, what about a meetup at the third printer show when shows can be held again? Not even something I was aware of, to be honest. But Jay's just joined the call. If he's still here, he might have an answer whether N3DPS have a presence at that show.
What show is that? Sorry, I'm on my phone. I can't see the.
So I'm going to assume that Tom's possibly referring to something like TCT.
Yeah, so I think TCT has been postponed this year. We haven't had a booth at TCT in the past, but now we've grown our members so much with an amazing community like you guys. Maybe something we could look into. I love TCT. I met Joseph Prusa there. But yeah.
I actually wanted to go last year. Unfortunately, my wife was pregnant with my little one, and I was kind of gutted I didn't get to go. But obviously got the better end of the stick.
TCT is awesome.
Christian said Zero and Sunlu. Yes, Sunlu, eSun as well is another quite a common Chinese branded filament. Yeah, so asking about the whole who's who. If you go onto the National 3D Printing Society.co.uk website, you'll find in the About section that you've got all the admins on there. A couple of rather comical pictures of certain admins that are staying a little bit quiet in this call right now, and also the departments that we're trying to cover. Should bear in mind that most of the admins are also volunteers doing this off our own back, just like you guys. So if you do message us and we're not so quick on replying, bear in mind we've got family, and also some of us are also trying to do day jobs at the same time as well. Kim, are you having a poke at my two Prussias there? And yeah, Christian, Prussian is an absolute dream. I love it. What I don't love is a £45 a kilo price tag on some of their spools. If Joseph happens to want to send me a couple of 100 kilos at any point in time, I would be more than happy to take that off of his hands.
Sorry, my chat's just skipped to the bottom, but I just seen someone there saying they've had brilliant results with B&Q yellow filament. Which there you go. See, it's such a mixed bag. You can't really say. It goes down to your printer, I suppose.
Yeah, as well. Sometimes you can get a roll of filament from a company, and you just be like, I can't get this to print at all. As dumb as it might sound, change colour. As Phil said, with him having issues with the yellow, different colours sometimes actually prefer different temperatures. I don't know if any of you guys have ever seen filament being made, but it's normally completely translucent material going in, and then pigment going in as well. So the pigment can actually have a different melting temperature as well. So sometimes if you just give up with one, switch out, go for a different material, and go from there.
One of the first problems Adam had, actually, he asked me, and I said, change your filament. And he said, you might be right. And then he did, and it was fine after he spent, was it a few hours trying to fix everything else?
Yeah, I kept printing headbands, and then as soon as I put any slight twist on the arms, on the legs of them, they just completely came apart, and I just had a load of what probably could be used as a brush come out the leg. All my plastic sits in my garage on a shelf, and obviously with it having been open, sat there for a little while, it obviously taken in some moisture, and I'd taken it straight out of the garage and put it on my printer, and I hadn't thought to dry it. And even though it was PLA, if it got some moisture in there, that probably was what was killing it. And sometimes simple little solutions fix things. Yeah, so I saw Tony sitting replying to somebody there, I'm not quite sure who, because my chat keeps jumping around. Yeah, so we've got 2.85 2.85 filament in 750 gram spools, and PLA currently in 1,000 gram spools. We have got more stuff coming in. Delivery dates obviously aren't the most accurate things at the moment, as I'm sure you can all understand. If anyone's tried ordering anything off places like Amazon or anything like that lately, deliveries are going mental with everybody being at home. So we are waiting for some more to come in, and then get that all sorted and get it lifted on there. And by the end of that, we'll actually have filament of both sizes in different price ranges. So for those that can't necessarily make enough parts to get 1,000 points or whatever else, there'll be fewer point options as well for people. Just jumped again. Here we go. Yeah, Christian, I remember paying I think it was £45 for Prussian. I can't fully remember, to be honest, but I've definitely got some rolls in my garage which are like £60 for like colour fab, carbon fibre fill, PHA, which is the same as PLA, but they for some reason call it something a bit different. Yes, that's actually a very good point you make there, Sonic, about the really ridiculously overpriced bill people have seen on Slack. Please do not worry about it. You will not be charged that bill. We have absolutely no idea why it gets sent to anybody on the Slack that isn't admin or the actual owner of the account. We are looking into other solutions for when that trial actually runs out. We have got things in the works. Obviously, once we've got full details, we'll release them out to you and let you all know.
Yeah. John, I've just read your message on Slack, mate. I'll be replying to you this evening. Sorry about that. Just had a lot of things come up recently.
Yes, if anybody does want to send me a pallet too, by all means, please do. I would prefer the Pro, but I'm not too picky.
Someone mentioned there about the having the Bowden system direct drive, actually getting rid of the Bowden system, sorry, and putting a direct drive on your CR10. Something I've looked into myself. What you got to remember is there is a bit of a trade-off there because you're putting more weight on your printing nozzle, which can cause more sort of movements in a way and layer shifts when printing larger objects. And also, I've got a direct drive and I've got a Bowden system, so I've got two different ones. And I was looking and reading up all the information. It did mention somewhere that your filament sort of pulls on the printer head, pulls it up slightly when you're printing. So as your roll goes around, it can give it, if it's not set up for it in the first place, it can give it inconsistent results in a way. I might be wrong, but I looked into it and it just ended up being a rabbit hole, and I thought, I'll just leave it as it is.
Yeah, anything that uses V-slot wheels, putting a direct drive on it can cause them to rock a little bit. Even if you've got the concentric nut tightened appropriately, it can still cause them to rock around a little bit. So basically, most of the Kralik machines, for example, obviously are all Bowden to start with. Not for Kralik 3D, but T1 tank extruders. Really improving for racing. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, but there's so many different parts out there, so many different applications for all these different parts. So you've got things like mosquito hot ends, Bondtech extruders. There's so many different variations. The one thing I would say to anybody who's like, I'm going to get a printer, I'm going to go get some upgrades, is please don't buy your print. If you're buying like your first printer or your second printer or whatever else, don't just buy a printer and buy the upgrades. Learn the printer first before you upgrade. Always be my advice to anybody. And then once you work out, yeah, I can benefit from that upgrade, yeah, by all means, obviously there's plenty of good parts out there. But definitely advise learning the machines first.
Or buying a more expensive printer. I learned that mistake.
No, stick to the ANET A8 days. They were the great printers. Burned down fast, but I love the ANET A8. That's how I learned everything to do with 3D printing, by fixing everything that went wrong.
Yeah, we were discussing that earlier. You only learn by having issues. And I was watching Jay the other night build his own printer. So once he starts at the factory in China, you'll be able to get your very own Jay's printer.
So Pascal, so you've got a couple of questions here. So the first one, I'm not fully understanding. I guess you might have got cut off a little bit there with the character limit. So yes, if when you flex the part, you end up with the part splitting slightly, one of the walls splits off, that would be a failed print. Ways in which to fix that, generally.
I'd say level. I think he's on about if when you're printing you get an imperfection on one side of the print but not the other, which usually means the bed's not level.
Or your gantry, depending on your machine.
Yeah, or the gantry's not level, and therefore it's slightly printing away from the surface on one side and closer on the other. So it can be to do with that. It can just be to do with if you're on a direct drive system like me, I find with direct drive sometimes that does happen. I have to twist the model to try in the slicer to try and get rid of that, because it's where the filament is turning around and it's at that point where it starts to pull the filament down, and that pulls the nozzle up away from the bed. But that's just me. I have got a very cheap system on a direct drive, so it could just be me.
Excuse me, I just jumped again a million miles away. Yeah, on your other question, does this imply that it's to do with bed level rather than the settings in the slicer? So yeah, again, as Phil said, if you've got mesh bed leveling, which most printers that are coming out nowadays have got mesh bed leveling in some shape or form, and they've got some automatic bed leveling, then yeah, you can use that to actually correct any warped beds or deviation a little bit. And it will obviously automatically adjust it. Obviously, you end up with a slightly uneven bottom on your print that you pretty much don't ever notice because it's so minor that you can't actually see it. But believe it or not, just getting a straight edge and sticking it on top of the part is also on top of your bed's actually a really good idea. And obviously checking at all different angles. Has anyone tried these nozzles? Not quite sure which nozzles you're on about there, Sonic. Yes, it definitely is. If you guys aren't already aware, we've got Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, obviously YouTube, obviously you're watching us on anyway. But always please do like, share, subscribe, follow, all those wonderful things, all those different channels. It does help actually spread the word of the community, and also obviously get some more members in. And also obviously with the Just Giving as well. If you guys are doing such an amazing job, but if you can post it out as well, then your friends, family, whoever else that haven't got 3D printers can actually help the cause as well.
Just looking into the future as well, we're all mega busy as admins at the moment right now, but we have discussed, especially with our 3D printing expert Jacob, that maybe we'll do some sort of tutorials, some videos and stuff to help everyone moving forwards. But Jacob's very busy balancing some of his university work right now, but I'm sure as he frees up, he'll be more than happy to do that.
So, House of Chung, you are just reminding me of all the things that I've forgotten about by having an extremely busy day. Yes, so we have also turned back on the version 3.6. That is, so you can go onto the website and donate those. That is until midnight Wednesday next week. That will be the absolute final cut off of that. If you have already switched to the version 7, please carry on printing version 7. Please do not deliberately print any more version 3s. It's just for you guys that have got them sat there at home, and obviously you can get them sent in, and we can obviously use those parts. The Bontech also is essential for flexible materials like NinjaFlex. I would say Bontech is essential for flexible materials like NinjaFlex and other flexibles. Bowdens are definitely not ideal and have more problems than anything else. Direct drive is pretty much a requirement for flexible materials, especially the extremely flexible materials. There's different material rating for them. I can't remember from the top of my head, but I know NinjaFlex is one of the most flexible ones that people tend to print with.
I was going to say I can back that up with having one direct drive and one CR10. I printed some flexible material, and you can't use the Bowden because it can't push the material from, what is that, about 20 a foot away. It just sort of, it's too elastic. You've got to have a direct drive to go straight in to the nozzle.
I know on that though, I know because on my Ender 5, I print with TPU, but what I've done is I've dropped the speed. It's like a snail, so I've dropped the speed to about 20 millimeters per second kind of speed. I've printed a shoe sole with TPU. It's not too bad, but it's still nothing like the E3D Homero, which can print it like normal speed.
Yeah, there's so many. There are ways and means of doing it with a Bowden, but it does require a lot more tweaking. Where for example, with a direct drive, it's just easier out of the box, pretty much. You still do have to slow it down, no matter what. But Bowden or direct drive can't print it as fast.
I know, definitely though. So many strings when printing TPU on the Creality. I'm not sure how it is on direct drive because I haven't actually tried it on direct drive.
I think I had about the same results with the direct drive.
Mine was pretty stringy, but Dave here is saying yes, you can. He uses the Ninja, so sorry. You know, I'm no expert either, and you're a better man than me, Dave. I could get it to work.
To be fair, if you've got an alt maker and you've got some NinjaFlex, you're already in the right direction. That is definitely over what my wife will allow me to spend, especially if I wish to stay married. Before you get 3D printed, look up which is more reliable, and also firms doing Mark 3 or 4, or having fixed all the faults in the first one. Yeah, so yeah, by all means, obviously, watch YouTube reviews are the absolute gold mine of which printer do you want. They tell you all the ups, the downs. I guarantee every 3D printer's got some downsides, and that if you want no downsides in function, then there's a massive downside in the fact that it costs a lot of money. So it all depends on what you want and what realistically you can afford. There's so many printers and add-ons for printers out there that I would love, but again, like anything, money is always the limiting factor. Yeah, so Robert, obviously depending on which slicer you're using, so for example with Prusa Slicer, it allows me to actually pick a face to sit the part on, so that the part has always got a flat bottom to it. So as long as you sit it on that flat piece, if you're using Cura, I know you can rotate the part a certain number of degrees, and you could potentially knock it out a degree or two, and then it sit wonky. Yeah, obviously, we'll just double check that you have got it flat on the bed. If your slicer doesn't automatically do that for you, but when you drag the file into your slicer, it should automatically orientate it in the correct fashion. Oh, chat's jumping again.
Just Sonic there asking about support material for beginners, things like PVA. I'm too cheap to use that sort of material and have a dual extruder. Adam, you're the.
To be fair, I'm also too cheap to use PVA. I can't justify spending that kind of money on a support material. I'd rather just. I've not got anything that's multi-nozzle. I haven't got anything like an MMU or a pallet or anything like that either. I just use the same material that I'm using to print with, and just make sure I've got a nice layer gap between the part and the actual model itself, so they come away clean. And then some leaving those files, sandpaper.
Yeah, you can get away with your support settings if you're using PLA for PLA supports, and you can it takes a long time to tune it correctly, but you can get away where they do come off perfectly. But then I do understand the use for PVA as well, because I've been looking into it and using it for some engineering pieces that I print, because these can't afford to have like the bit, when you take supports off, it's got that little bits there, and it's just so much easier when you're doing really intricate parts to have PVA. But then at that point you say, why don't you just move to resin printing?
Yeah, I find I've got the CR10S Pro, and with that, I don't know how, but for some reasons, the settings I have in Cura are perfect for it, and my support material just comes away amazingly. And then with the other one is actually, I'll get ripped for this probably, I don't know if anyone's got one, a SteadyTech Pro X, and the support material there, it's welded to it most of the time. I do have to take a knife to it, and it's using the same settings. So obviously I've got to change my settings, but I'm not particularly 100% on what. I'd probably have to bend Jay's ear or something about that. So it does again depend on your printer as well.
Yeah.
I think we've got to remember with all these Chinese built printers, you can have every printer is different. I know my retraction settings are different to the next guy, and a lot of the lower end consumer printers are like that. Like no two printer is the same with their settings, so everything needs tuning.
Exactly. Christian, as well, with your question, any info on the admin applications from a week ago? I don't know which specific admin you may have spoken to about that. If you want me to get back in touch with them, we can get you an update on that.
I think it was Tom.
Ping Phil a message. Ping Phil a message, I think.
No worries. If you ping them to me, I'll have a look.
Never had Polymaker supports. Yeah, I said so. I've never actually played around with Polymaker or PVA. How do successful stacks that I've seen the prints all in between surfaces, make a basket and string. Yeah, so it depends. So with the stacked parts, personally, I've tried printing them. I've done some test prints, and I've not successfully gotten any of the stack prints to work with my particular printers. Admittedly, I haven't had to put as much time into working out my settings for it as I probably should do to work it out. So I've been obviously too busy doing stuff running this group. So I just print singles. That if you do struggle, but some of the lower grade printers I do know also definitely struggle printing the stacked ones, so the Corellities, and again saying about Chinese printers as well. But if you need a quicker way to get your parts printing without you having to intervene every hour or half hour or whatever else you've got your print times down to, I highly recommend talking to Alfie about his auto eject. There's a couple of other people out there as well who have made some slight amendments to his auto eject for different printers. He is more than happy to help anybody out who wants to use it. Just ping him a message and he'll get you on your way. I think he also put it in the I'm not sure which channel it is, but it's definitely a channel where he's actually put about it as well. I think might be in guessing me start here. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, Bones, drop a message and he can point you in the right direction with auto eject. So yeah, again with the stats. So we've tried pegs. We've tried like 1,000 different methods of trying to get it to stack nicely. I think it really does depend on the printer that you're printing them on more than anything else. Yeah, zigzag supports. There's so many, depending on your slice, it depends on what support options you get. I've printed parts before. I printed a Superman bust for somebody, and using a custom support column underneath the chin, because no matter what support I put there, it just would not work. He had just had a hole in his chin, and he didn't want it painted or anything else like that. So I needed it to be a good quality print. He just wanted a raw printed part. So yeah, there's so many different ways to do supports. I don't think we need to kind of go through the details on, but there's so many different ways of doing it. You can get tutorials on YouTube as well. Yeah, so yeah, with the stack print as well, just saying this as well, people can make sure that they split them before they send them in as well, just to make sure obviously we've got. Yeah, make sure they split apart, because obviously when they get to IGUS, if they split apart and they don't split apart nicely, or they're not clean, they haven't got the time, unfortunately, to be able to sit there and sand the parts down if needs be. So please make sure they're split apart before you send them in. Yeah, as well, a point from one of the other admins just dropped me a message as well. If you could possibly, well, when you guys are receiving your filament, I know, because I sent it, there's definitely a couple of people out there getting 12 kilos worth of filament that they've printed parts in and sent them through to us. Please take some pictures, stick them on social media, tag N3DPS in them, and just get the more chat on social media we can get about this, the more community members we can get, the more donations we can get from non-3D printers, the more material we can buy, but filament and clear plastic sheets, the more we can get out there, the more we can help people, which is the entire aim of all the admins. We're all here giving our own time to this to help the front line. That is the entire purpose of what we're here. We're not getting any gain out of this apart from a lack of sleep and some slightly angry wives. We are just doing what we can to help the situation as well. So please, the more you share, the easier it is on everybody.
The one thing I'd say is Tom has got the applications he just said, and he will get in touch with you as and when there's a position, if and when required. At the moment, we do have a few admins sort of sat around doing nothing, and then we've got other admins working 20 to 22 hours a day, getting 2 nights of sleep, like Adam, because his speciality is IT, and we don't have that specific skill set. So it is a bit up and down, and we are behind on things, and I do apologize if you do contact us and we don't get back to you, or we don't get back to you in time. We're not ignoring you, I promise. We're just flat out on something else. We are working as hard as we can to make sure we make this a success for everybody. Like Adam said, no one's getting paid from even the guys on the board. So we're all here to help each other. Yeah. And for anyone that's messaging me, to be completely honest with you,
my wife's actually been dealing with a lot of my messages for me because I've been trying to also do some of my day job as well. So she's even been helping out and replying to some of you as well. So literally we've been sat here, she working our way through all these messages and any problems you've got. So by all means, we're not saying don't message us because we're busy. Obviously, by all means, if you've got questions, queries, and problems, by all means, get in touch with us. But do just be patient with us. Have you got any more questions in Slack or anything that you've seen, Phil? So I'm a bit aware of the time.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I did have a message from someone direct over the last couple of days about the headband. If he's listening, I just want to apologise. I will try to. Jay's mega busy at the moment. He's got a new design on the headband. Just makes it for him. It prints brilliantly. So if he wants to drop that in the chat, and if anyone wants to give that a go, by all means do so. That's not a problem. And if it's more successful and it's better, we can look at swapping it out for the one that we've got. You know.
So Rob, see you asking about. Have you any considered that fume from PETG? PETG is not really a very fumey material. Like anything, if you're melting plastic, it's generally good to be in a ventilated room. If you're putting ABS, then a very well ventilated room. So it depends on the material. Ventilation is always good. I've always got the window open in my office whenever my printers are running. So yeah. Again, House of Chung reminding me that I have a memory of a goldfish. Yes, so tomorrow night's call will be at 8:30. So obviously I can go outside and do the clap for the NHS. Yeah, so Sonic, personally, I think I used a couple of YouTubers to learn how everything I know about 3D printing so far, and obviously my own experiences from there. But yeah, so as I said, tomorrow will be on at 8:30. Just worry about the time that we start looking at wrapping this up. So if you guys can possibly go like, share, subscribe, follow, retweet, all those things, all the social media side of things, that'd be much appreciated.
Burden's got you well trained there.
Yeah, Verden has beat me into submission there. We have also got every morning we put out our supplier spotlight as well. I've got a nice story for you guys tomorrow that will be going out. And again, if you guys have got any problems, questions, queries, recommendations, or anything like that, by all means direct them at the admins. If don't worry about necessarily picking the right one, we'll always redirect you to the correct admin if you have any issues. But you will find on Slack we've all got in our name kind of whether we're a bit more general or we're a bit more specific. So by all means drop us messages on there. And yeah, we'll speak to you guys again at 8:30 tomorrow night.